The First World War engendered a rift within the Flemish movement, with some wishing to pursue the advocacy of Flemish rights and others preferring to await the war's end to obtain new laws. After the war, the Flemish movement broadened and its base radicalized, thus taking on a new dimension. But let us see how the Flemish movement started. So, in the 19th century, Belgium was ruled by the French speaking elite. French was indeed the language of schooling and higher education, administration, justice, and even in the army, while Flemish was mainly spoken by the lower classes. In 1830, a movement of Flemish intellectuals wished to develop the Flemish artistic and scientific scene because they saw this as the first step towards emancipation for Flanders. The debate eventually forced the creation of the Flemish University of Ghent, becoming a symbol for the Flemish struggle in other fields. The movement influenced various political parties who started relying on the Flemish demands, strengthened by the new voters who were gained by the right to vote in 1894, which also made universal suffrage for men. At the end of the 19th century, some laws were introduced to timid the bilingualism, such as in 1873 it was Flemish and French in justice, 1878 in public administration, 1883 in education. However, on the eve of the war, little had been accomplished, eliciting frustration and anger amongst the Flemish. The war caused a profound rift within the Flemish movement, broken up as it was divided between the activists, the pacifists, and the frontists. In order to divide and weaken Belgium, the German occupiers used the Flemish frustrations to develop the Flemme Politique. This program aimed at reinforcing the balance between the Germans and the Flemish by granting the Flemish their yet unenforced rights detailed in the Belgian legislation. The Flemish extremists opted for political collaboration with the Germans in view of seeing their requests met earlier, and they were called the activists. These men and few women often came from societies of middle class and had not been involved in politics until before the war, until the Flemish movement in 1914. They represented a small minority in the Flemish movement. The movement aspired to a federal Belgium, with more extreme factions dreaming of independence for Flanders. Over the first 2 years, Over the first 2 years of the war, the activists formed small and unrelated minority groups in Antwerp, Brussels, and Ghent. However, the movement received new impetus when the Germans started transforming Belgian legislations and institutions. Between October 1916 and March 1917, the Germans divided the Belgian administration, splitting all ministries in Flemish sections and Walloon sections. In October 1916, the Germans struck hard and deep within the creation of the Flemish University in Ghent, realizing the Flemish dream. The activists felt supported and therefore constituted the Raad van Vlaanderen, the Council of Flanders, in January 1917, symbolizing an independent and autonomous Flanders. The council was created in the central organization capable of both conducting an activist policy and enforcing Flemish demands for international scenes. The council was also establishing the first step for a Flemish parliament and a Flemish government. However, the Germans did not support this concept as it hindered their diplomatical contracts aiming for a separate peace with Belgium. When the council proclaimed Flanders independent on the 22nd of December 1917, the Germans nipped the Flemish autonomous ambitions in the bud and forced activists to hold elections in order to legitimize their power. Concessions. Cautious of their limited power, the activists organized meetings during which supporters applauded the declaration of the independence of Flanders. These so-called elections were both a sham and a failure, and constant rallies were held in Antwerp, Mechelen, and Turnhout. Simultaneously, the Department of Justice, obeying the orders of the Belgian government in Le Havre, decided to arrest Auguste Brooms and Pratchett Tak, the main characters of the Council of Flanders. However, the Germans pressured to let the two activists go immediately, so the Belgian magistrate felt powerless and they went on strike. The pacifists, the obvious opposite of the activists, the Flemish who refused collaboration in whatsoever shape or form and remained loyal to Belgium to the very end. They were called pacifists. They were found both in occupied Belgium and also in exile in the last 10% of Belgium, which was near the North Sea and Flanders. Among them, they had very many politicians who tried to legally obtain concessions from the Belgian government as they kind of saw it as a refund for the sacrifices brought during the war. Their efforts to obtain concrete promises from the Belgian government regarding the delicate issue to use both Flemish in both education and administration, even the army and justice, were not met with success. This enraged both hostility as part of the Belgian nationalists This engendered both hostility on the part of the Belgian nationalists, who reproached them for raising such questions when the country first and foremost needed unity, and the concept on the part of the activists, who reproached them for failure and lacking of fighting spirit. The two rival factions were complemented by the Front RAndom, which was the front movement. This secret organisation saw the light of day on the Belgian front, when a number of Flemish intellectuals wanted to see the prominent language and promote their language to the equivalents within the French-speaking people within the army. It only represented a minority, but nonetheless, it managed to communicate the Flemish struggles and spread ideas beyond purely intellectual circles. The German defeat forced the activists into exile, either into Germany or the Netherlands. Those remaining in Belgium were arrested and put on trial before martial or criminal courts. Honorary juries cleansed administration and parties of all activist influences. Some French speakers hoped condemnation would put an end to all Flemish demands. The Belgian government nevertheless realized the time had now come to take certain measures. The Belgian government nevertheless realized it was time, and the time was now to take certain measures. In his parliamentary address on the 22nd of November 1918, King Albert I of the Belgians announced important reforms concerning language parity. Although the war and its suffering engendered a call for equality, concrete realization failed to appear. From then onwards, new political parties created around the Flemish nationalism forced on the Flemish demands. Through the war, Flemish nationalism managed to broaden its popular base. It became a mass movement with permanent political weight in Belgium. The war also simultaneously emerged with the Flemish extremist wing, with harsher demands threatening the unity of Belgium itself.